I went to Anfield and did a story on it in January, and one thing that struck me throughout talking to a lot of people is the roots of actually the Irish oral tradition in Liverpool and the Cop, and how, so many Irish people went over to Liverpool across the Irish Sea, and that there is an Irish strain in the Arsenal as well, with your Liam Brady's and your Frank Stapletons, your David O'Leary. I'm wondering if that factored in, I guess, for you and your brother, since your brother, who you call the Mug Smasher, is a Liverpool fan. But did those Irish strains for you as Irishmen draw you to those clubs at all, or was it more just, these are great clubs that you were interested in?
Well, I've often been asked how I became an Arsenal fan, and I grew up in England. I was Irish parents. Like many, they went to England in the 50s and 60s because that's what you had to do. Myself and my brother were born there, and I was football mad. My best guess about how I became an Arsenal fan was because there were so many Irish players at Arsenal at that time, and we were always brought up to remember that we were Irish when we lived in England, right? It wasn't a case of, well, we're here and you can be an English boy if you want. It was like, no, you're Irish. So remember that. So I think that's what it was, because there were players from the north and players from the Republic of Ireland as well. I can't speak for my brother. I think he was a bit too young to sort of rationalize things in that way. He's 3 years younger than me. So my best guess is that, knowing him very well, he picked the team that was winning all the time just to annoy me. So, I think he's a bit of a glory hunter, but no, I can't blame him for that. And then, of course, you're absolutely right. The Irish connection in Liverpool, Manchester, I mean, all the big cities in England, had huge Irish populations, Irish centres, London, Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester. Liverpool in particular, though, I think you have like generations of Irish people who came. It's a very short boat ride, relatively speaking, between Dublin and Liverpool, or Belfast and Liverpool. So, yeah, those communities exist there and existed there and have existed there for many, many years. That's why in Ireland, the best supported clubs are Liverpool and Manchester United. They're number one and number two. It's probably a toss-up as to who's one and who's two. Arsenal are probably third. And again, it speaks to, those connections, those Irish connections that existed at that club, So, yeah, it'd be great to see. We've got a young Irish player coming over from Shamrock Rovers, I believe. He won't be able to arrive until 2027, unfortunately, because of the crazy rules around Brexit and work permits and things like that. But yeah, it'd be great to have another Irish player at Arsenal at some point.
Yeah, I was going to mention him. He's a Dublin kid, I think, right? He's from that area.
Yeah, he is from, as is quite representative of Ireland these days. He's got a Nigerian father and a Russian mother. Dublin, is a multicultural city now. And, there are these second, maybe third generation kids of people who've come to Ireland for a better life and have immigrated here and become part of our cities and our towns. And he's born here. He doesn't have the most typically Irish name you'll ever hear. He definitely does not. But, he's born here. He's born just up the road from me here, actually, in a suburb called Tala, which is where Katie McCabe comes from. It's where Robbie Keane comes from. There's a long history of good football players coming out of that part of Dublin. So he's currently playing for Shamrock Rovers, who are up in Tala. That's where their new stadium is. They're managed by a guy called Stephen Bradley, who was a former Arsenal youth player, never quite made it at the club, came over from Dublin, was brought to Arsenal by Liam Brady in the 2000s and didn't quite make it, but he's been a very successful manager at Shamrock Rovers now. So, yeah, it's great. It's a lovely story for him, and hopefully by the time he arrives, his development will be such that he can really push for a first team place.